This week on Motor Week, the Volvo 960 is dead. Long live the S80. Mike Rutherford takes one for a blast in Sweden. Plus, the 2.0 Heart concept at the Geneva show was in the end the direction Peugeot was going in for its much-awaited 205 replacement, the 206. We'll show you the details this week.
Do you know, I have to admit to being a girl who quite likes stuff. Not for me the dainty little handbag or the compact overnight case. No, it's everything and the kitchen sink as far as I'm concerned. So I suppose that one day I shall have to bow to this practical side of my nature and invest in the ultimate carrier of stuff, the estate car. Yes, carrying people's stuff has become big business, and all the car manufacturers have cottoned onto that. Luckily for them, it appears there are plenty more people out there like me who also feel the need to have their stuff with them wherever they go. And these days, you don't need to fork out a fortune for the privilege. Carrying stuff may be big business, but so is the small car market. Put the two together and what do you get? The 306 Estate, Vauxhall's Astra Estate, the Honda Civic Aerodeck, and this, the latest baby from Citroen, the Xsara Estate. Now, as we all know, the Xsara may have enlisted the help of that ultimate supermodel babe, Claudia Schiffer, to promote its looks, but in reality, it doesn't really set that many photographers' flashbulbs on fire. However, add a little bit extra to the back and it's suddenly become quite elegant. This is a rare occasion where the Estate is actually an improvement in the looks department. It's quite sleek, and instead of having roof bars, the Xsara's mounting points are integrated into the roof, keeping its lines nice and smooth. Inside is also nice. It isn't exactly stylish and it isn't exciting, but it's functional, it's well laid out and everything feels very solid, which is what you want in an estate car that's bound to get plenty of use. One touch that I particularly like is the way the controls for the stereo are mounted up here on the steering wheel. I think it's a good safety feature and something more manufacturers should do. But hey, enough of the interior. Let's get back to all that stuff. How big is this car? Will I get everything and the kitchen sink in here? Well, it has apparently the largest load space in its class. And if it means anything to you at all, it has 517 litres of boot space. An amazing 1,512 litres when you fold the back seats down. No, it means nothing to me either. And if you like to play Hunt the Map Pocket and spot the secret storage space, then you're in for a treat, because the Citroen Xsara Estate is packed full of practical little touches. Look, 2 glove boxes, door bins, a little stuff holder in the middle here, another one in the dash, and even more space for stuff cunningly concealed in the door armrests. And here at the back, the bumper has been cleverly built into the tailgate to give you a lower loading area. Inside here there's a parcel shelf, there's yet more cubby holes, and a net with points to tie things down to. Like your husband, the kids, or maybe even the dog. Come on, Woody! And the Xsara's not only got litres of space in the load area, but the driver and passengers all have plenty of head and leg room. It's just a shame though that to get a split rear seat, you really need to go for one of the 2 rather expensive top trim levels. Out on the road, well, let's be honest, you're not going to buy an estate car and expect sizzling performance and wonderful dynamics, are you? But it actually doesn't feel that different to the 5-door. Now, whether that's a plus point for the estate or a mark against the saloon, I'm not too sure. The handling feels solid and stable and the ride is comfortable. The suspension and the tyres on the Xsara Estate have been uprated to cope with all the extra weight, which has made the ride much firmer. Maybe a little too firm for some passengers. Powering this version is a 1.9 diesel engine, which has been around for a while now in both Peugeots and Citroens. And I have to say it's showing its age. It really doesn't have the refinement of some of its rivals. And most importantly, it isn't as economic as them. Better bets engine-wise are the 90 brake horsepower 1.6 or the 112 brake horsepower 16 valve. Also on offer is an underpowered 75 brake horsepower 1.4 and a 1.8, which is unique to the SX automatic model. The cheapest 1.4 will set you back just £12,470, and the top of the range 1.8 is £15,700. With this turbo diesel exclusive, the most expensive in the range at £15,800. The Citroen Xsara Estate isn't the most remarkable car that you could buy, but it is pretty hard to fault. So if you've reached that point in your life where you need plenty of space to carry all your stuff around with you, then this is a very good estate car at a very reasonable price.
From September the 10th in France and during October and November throughout the whole of Europe, Peugeot will be marketing a new car, the 206. This car is the successor of the 205, created in 1983, of which 5,300,000 have been produced. The 206 proposed in a 3- and 5-door version is an extremely well-balanced car in terms of its outside dimensions. Length 3,83 meters, width 1,65 meters. With a generously proportioned passenger compartment, the 206 will be available as soon as it's launched, with 3 44.1 kW 60 HP and 65 kW 90 HP petrol engines and one 51 kW 70 HP diesel engine. This range will very soon be completed by the offer of an HDI diesel engine. With its dynamic capabilities, the 206 is just as much at home in town, turning lock diameter 9.85 meters between curbs, as on the open road or motorway. Furthermore, its practical design enables good use to be made of the space available in the passenger compartment, thanks to the presence of numerous storage compartments, and in particular a folding rear seat and a modular passenger seat. The level of standard equipment, power-assisted steering, driver and passenger airbags, adjustable height steering wheel, ambient air recycling with pollen filter, makes it a car that's all the more stimulating and generous in that these prices will be more than in line with those of their competitors. Note that the practical sense of the 206 is reinforced by the availability, as an option, of an onboard navigation system. With all these advantages and the worthy air of the 205, the 206 will be initially proposed in 16 versions with 3 or 5 doors and a petrol or diesel engine. The 206 has represented an overall investment of 6.3 billion French francs, of which 1.8 billion was for industrial investments. It was developed in the space of 196 weeks. Its initial production run will be 2,000 units a day, divided between the Mulhouse centre in eastern France and Ryton in the UK, whilst awaiting a more international industrial development. Frédéric Saint-Jour, managing director of Peugeot, announced the marketing of the Coupé convertible presented at the Geneva show last March. In addition, a sports version of the 206 WRC will be developed to participate in the World Rally Championship in 1999.
After the break, Motor Week flies you to Volvo's secret test track in Sweden for an exclusive drive of the new Volvo S80.
Listen to that. Not very much noise at all. That's because we're in the wilds of Sweden. In case you've forgotten who I am, I'm Mike. I've got more air miles than Alan Rutherford. I've just stepped off a plane at Gothenburg. We've been whisked out to the Swedish countryside. We're here just for a few hours because we're one of, well, 9 journalists in the world have been invited to drive this car, the new Volvo S80. It's a replacement for what you'll remember probably as the 960. The V90, the S90, Volvo's biggest model. It's a limo-like car, but it doesn't, let me tell you, drive like the big tank that it looks. Let me tell you that much right from the start. Let's quickly talk you through the car. Amazing new grille, I think you'll agree we've got here. Energy absorbing grille. That's all for impact resistance. You know, there are some cars that flex like that because they're just built badly. That's all deliberate. Strange sounding bonnet, wouldn't you agree? Yes, aluminium. The side of the car, the S80, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, to me it's a bit bland. It's a bit sort of Opel Omega-ish, and that's probably the worst part of the car. They missed a trick somewhere along the line. Of course, this car was designed by a Brit, Peter Horbury, an old pal of ours. Not sure if he's a pal of mine anymore. Last time I saw him was in a nightclub in Tokyo. Anyway, that's another story. Rear end styling. Horbury was obviously working overtime there because I think it's spot on. There's something very Jaguar-ish about this, the way this sweeps in here. Jaguar-ish maybe, almost Bentley-like. There's something that says to me, every time I look at that rear end, Bentley. If you're thinking about an inexpensive Bentley that might be built by the VW family, they do a lot worse than to give it that rear end treatment. Lovely flowing line, and if you look at the car side on, you can see this line runs right through from the front to the rear. Very, very unusual lamp cluster here. Gives it an awful lot of presence somehow. You know, I said to you it was limo-like. I think it's almost sort of statesman-like at the back here. There's something very, very nice indeed a bit about that rear end treatment. And look at this. You've never seen this before in the history of Volvo. A Volvo badge right there in the middle. They were thinking about putting the Volvo logo there, which is sort of blue and black and not terribly exciting, but they've gone for the name Volvo instead at the back, and I think that works very well. And look what I said earlier, you know, this sweeping line, look, you can follow that right through, all the way through to the front, and the theme continues there. It's got four wheels, no surprises there, I guess. Great presence, I think, at the front end. This is a car with cachet, class, character. Does it drive as good as it looks? Decision time immediately when you climb into the S80, and that's whether to go for the conventional automatic box on this car or flip over to the Tiptronic, which means that instead of changing gear in a conventional way, fishing your way through a 5 or 6 speed box, it's just straight up and down, changing gear, just like the BTCC drivers do. Takes a bit of getting used to, but that's all you do. Now I've got to be careful here because I'm on a very fast test track here in Sweden, and I don't want to upset the people behind me, so I'm just letting that very nice man pass who's driving at 100 miles an hour. We're doing half that. I think for the purpose of this little exercise, we'll settle for the standard auto box. Ooh, somebody got it a bit out of shape up there, which means that we're not having to worry too much about what gear we're in. The car does the thinking for us. We're worrying about pointing it in the right direction. And I've got to say that pointing this car in the right direction is, well, virtually child's play. It's one of those cars that really does flatter you as a driver. I've been whacking around, getting used to this track here. We're in the wilds of Sweden. We're used to driving on frozen lakes out here, and they found some tarmac for us this time. Glorious sunshine, and it's a very nice tight circuit. Oh, I don't know if you can feel those bumps. You probably can. We're on the sort of handling part of the course here, and I've got to say this steering is very, very precise indeed. It's a large car. It's a very large car. Think of the big Volvo Estate, the V70, as we get onto a smoother surface here, and think how huge and sort of almost truck-like that car is. Well, this is even bigger, slightly longer than that. This car certainly looks like a car in the kind of BMW 7 Series league. It's a much smaller car than that. It's 5 Series size or thereabouts. That look that the most expensive cars have, you know, the Jaguars, the Rolls Royces, the Daimlers. It really does look the part from the outside. It's the sort of car that, you know, a president, a prime minister could pull up outside a government office in, or a pop star could arrive at a film premiere or a music concert in. You know, it's got that kind of extra something. I think the styling is a emotive subject, but I think it's got it as we go over more of the uneven road surfaces here to test the car's handling. The other thing about this car is that our old friend Jose Diaz de la Vega the motor industry's most famous Mexican, who's an old friend of the programme. He won't mind me saying that, I'm sure. He's done a great job on this interior. He's a guy that we talk to at motor shows all around the world on the programme, and we're always giving him our ideas. He's always seeking our ideas, and those of journalists from all over the world, actually, on, as we let this guy past, on what's good or bad about his interiors. I personally pleaded with him to sort out these little things like the cup holder arrangement, which meant that you inevitably spilt most of the drinks that you carried around in your previous Volvos. He really has done that very well. There's a very, very clever new design he's got down here to my right, and a lot of lessons there for other car manufacturers to pick up on. As we come across here, the rough surface again designed to test the car's suspension. It's really soaking up those bumps.
So this car is the first car out of what we call the large platform. It's a totally new car, a totally new segment for Volvo, and we are very proud to be here.
Hans, it's called the S80. You say it's a new area for you, but you've always been in that market. You know, the 960 people will remember as the big Volvo.
Exactly. But what we are doing now is to go into a segment with a much more dynamic car than we have had before. Also more exclusive from a different point of view than the old cars we have had there.
Well, exclusive in what way?
This is exclusivity when it comes to this car. It's mainly safety, a combination of a very safe car with dynamic abilities.
Would you call it a driver's car? That's the buzz phrase in Britain these days, that, you know, there are cars and then there are driver's cars.
Exactly. This is a driver's car. We had 4 words during the developing that should be leading into what we should do. And these are a car for grown-up people who like to stay young.
Exactly. That's me. Although I'm not sure I'm grown up yet. My birth certificate says I'm grown up, but I don't feel it.
We talk about active safety, of course, also. That's when we talk about the suspension system, the wheelbase, a car that you can rely on, that behaves in the same way, undependable on what surfaces you are on. It's always predictable, so that you feel safe, and it's neutral in every case, driving conditions.
I said earlier, as I was driving along in it, that it almost flatters you as a driver. It's one of those cars that I hope I'm right, it would be very difficult to actually get you in any real trouble. I mean, you'd have to do something very, very silly to come off the road in this car.
And what we will add also more than has been added to this is also that what we call DSTC, Dynamic Stability and Traction Control. That helps you even further than if you make something very stupid, the car take care of you and correct you. So you're not spinning around or going into the wrong lane or something like that.
I've got used to the car, I've got used to the Tiptronic gearbox, I've got used to the track. Woo! I feel quite exhausted actually. I mean, I'm staggered, I'm truly staggered. We've got to be careful in getting too excited about this car because we've only been with it for an hour and a half, so it's too early to come to any firm conclusions. But as it stands, well, I mean, it's got the looks, it's got the presence on the road, it's got the interior. I mean, the engines, I don't know where to begin. I can't even remember all the specs and all the sizes, but from memory, there's that virtually 300 horsepower twin turbocharged top of the range version I'm in here. We've got 2-litre versions, we've got turbo diesels coming on stream in the future. You know, they're all pretty powerful, 150, 170 horsepower, some of them. I mean, really, forgive me if I'm sounding a little bit excited, but I feel quite exhilarated after this drive. I mean, it just seems to me that this is, for the first time really ever, Volvo have made a major statement to other car manufacturers. We're seeing what they can do in the British Touring Car Championship and in touring car racing around the world, in fact. Now they've come up with a great design, a great interior, a great engine, great engine. I don't know what tyres were on here, but I think they must be surrounded with elastoplast or something because they're just sticking to this very hot and almost melting surface here in this early summer's day in the wilds of Sweden, where it's very, very warm indeed. I mean, this is a car that it's got a great sound system, it's got these great features, gizmos and gadgets everywhere, it's classy, it's high-tech, it's the first limo-like car that I've ever driven that has a racing car-like feel, if that's not too strong a way of putting it. I mean, I don't know, this is not a car, this is a smorgasbord. Like I said, it's got a bit of everything. Ta-da!
The AA has released figures which shows the cost to British business of company drivers breaking the speed limit, as well as damaging the environment. Over a distance of only 10 miles, a car breaking the 70 miles an hour speed limit by 15 miles an hour or more uses up a third extra fuel and pumps an extra 0.8 kilograms of CO2 into the atmosphere. The simple advice is slow down, keep to the speed limit, keep your distance, accelerate and brake smoothly, and of course give yourself enough time for your journey. Ford are introducing a special 6-hour Saturday overtime shift at their Dagenham plant to cope with demand for the Fiesta. The extra shifts will produce an additional 4,500 vehicles for Britain and export to mainland Europe, Mexico and Argentina. Dagenham also produces Fiesta and Courier vans as well as the Mazda 121. This upturn in demand is a welcome boost for Ford employees. Toyota have produced their 500,000th vehicle in the UK on June the 2nd. The Avensis is destined for France. Production this year is set to reach the 170,000 mark. A physical demonstration of Toyota's investment in UK production of £1.5 billion. Previously, Toyota management in Japan warned that future investment in the UK may be reviewed when the British government announced that we would not enter the first group, joining the single European currency scheme. However, the welcome announcement of the 500,000th car and production of the Corolla at Burnston later in the year show continued commitment. That's it for this week. Next week on Motor Week, are you sitting comfortably? Back and posture expert Terry Mole shows us how to avoid the pain of motoring. Plus, Mike Rutherford visits a driving school with a difference. All next week on Motor Week.